evening to you, kings and queens, princes and princesses, everybody. Hey, thank you very much for joining us for today's edition of Gudday Grenada. I'm George Grant, and today happens to be the 5th day of April 2019. Pilgrims, let's get right into our rundown as we begin yet another quest for good governance. Bottom line, bottom line. That's what we're all after, isn't it? We're going to start this morning with an opinion piece by Claudette Joseph. It's captioned, Deja Vu. Ha. Yes, sir. Waiting here. It's very topical, very current. You'll hear what that's all about in just a wee bit. And I'm happy to report that we do have a national report for you today from the GIS. And then, this being a Friday morning, just got off the phone with him a few minutes ago. He's going to be joining us on Zoom electronically, Mr. Brian Pitt. Okay? So, there you have it. That's our rundown for this morning's edition of Gudday Grenada. Let's begin. Let's continue our quest for good governance. In 1998, the court ruled that government breached Richard Duncan's constitutional right and constructively dismissed him when he was asked to take indefinite leave from his post of Accountant General. Keith Mitchell decided to victimize Duncan because he was too fresh. Duncan was a young man with more than 20 years still to serve in the public service. Although far from retirement age, because of Mitchell's vindictiveness, Mr. Duncan has been receiving our tax dollars as a pensioner for over 20 years. Today, he is still a man of working age. Now fast forward to September 2017. Same vindictive Prime Minister, different public servant, and same cost to us, the taxpayers. Through sheer reckless disregard for the financial cost of his actions, Mitchell again decided to dish out the Duncan treatment on Cabinet Secretary Gemma Bain-Thomas. Like Duncan, Mrs. Bain-Thomas is a fairly young woman with many years still to serve. On the 22nd of September 2017, the Court of Appeal found that the spiteful decision to transfer Bain-Thomas from the post of Cabinet Secretary, a post protected by the Constitution, to the non-established post created just for her, was a breach of Section 85(2) of the Constitution, and therefore null and void. Mrs. Bain-Thomas was consequently awarded damages in excess of $650,000, plus interest and costs, for breach of her constitutional rights. In addition, on March 12, 2019, the court awarded Ms. Bain-Thomas a further $75,000, plus interest and costs, as vindicatory damages. The court said that as the right violated by government was a constitutional one, it, quote, adds an extra dimension to the wrong, unquote. The vindicatory damages were awarded to Mrs. Bain-Thomas to reflect the sense of public outrage, emphasize the importance of the constitutional right, and the gravity of the breach, and to deter further breaches. That's an actual quote from the judgment. Just as criminals are jailed as a means of deterring them from committing further crimes, so too the court has awarded vindicatory damages against our government to deter Keith Mitchell from further malicious and vindictive acts against his own people. Ms. Bain Thomas will now receive in the region of $1 million when interest and cost are factored in. Plus, she will qualify for her full pension when she reaches the age of 60. Grenadians, how long will you keep paying for Keith Mitchell's wickedness? Just as we are preparing to go to press with this article, news reached us that former Commissioner of Police Willen Thompson won his case against government for the same spiteful and vindictive acts by Mitchell. We predict that he will be awarded even more damages than Ms. Bain Thomas. And none of that will come from Keith Mitchell's $19 million. We, the people, will keep paying for his wickedness as long as we keep electing him. It is interesting to note that the NDC, in its 2 terms in office, has never recorded a single case of worker victimization or constitutional violation against it. On the other hand, the costly cases mentioned here are just 3 in a long list under Mitchell's belt. The people of St. Mark are certainly also having their own case of deja vu at this time. In 2003, a poultry farm initiative of a group of locals was hijacked by Mitchell and Boson. In the end, we, the taxpayers, had to pay $6.9 million US because of their wicked, reckless acts. Now, in 2019, the people of St. Mark are shafted again with the ill-fated shrimp farm. More details on these will be given in another issue. With Mitchell and his lawless bunch, it is always deja vu nightmares, and so it shall be until we get rid of them for good. Pilgrims, there you have it. That's a piece that came out in this week's edition of the NDC Heartbeat. It's published on the GrenadaBroadcast.com website. Go check it out if you missed any part of it there this morning. Okay? Now, let's turn attention to Facebook. TF is early this morning, and he's saying, Happy Friday, one and all. And Margaret is also very perky this morning, saying, Thank God it's Friday. Friday. Yay. Yay to you too, Max. Fitzroy Adams saying, Good morning. I'm very happy to be in class. Boy, so am I. We're thankful to be alive this morning, aren't we? Again, as always, just came from the balcony out there. Amazingly beautiful, beautiful morning. And taking a look down at the Melville Street Terminal after a very busy day yesterday when we had 3 cruise ships in here. This morning, nada, nothing, no cruise ships. So it's going to be a good day to take a walk around town. You got to do some errands. You're not going to be bumping into a lot of people. Peter Bishop's in Long Island this morning, and Tamika Batiste is saying good morning to you folks. And TF comes back here with a little footnote. He says, George, we'll have to name this reoccurring payout the Duncan Lottery. Call it whatever you will, TF. I could always count on you to come up with something. Yeah. Okay, folks. So there you have it. That's our first little piece this morning, our first section. Oh, by the way, here comes Benedict Cador saying, fantastic Friday. Good to see you, Mr. Cador. And let's take our first little break now, and we'll come on back with the National Report.
Pump it up, pump it up. Pump it up, pump it up. Pump it up.
Start the stride to a healthy lifestyle at the 2019 annual Pump It Up Family Fun Walk. There'll be more fun, more smiles, and more prizes for families and friends. Join us in Carrickoo on April 7th at 4 p.m. as we walk from the Harveyvale playing field to the Hillsborough tennis court. And in Grenada on April 28th at 4 p.m. from the Montrouge playing field to the National Cricket Stadium. Packages cost $20 per person for up to 2 individuals and $15 per person for groups of 3 or more. Come out in your numbers to help us raise funds towards re-establishing the Carlton home.
Welcome home.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Boy, they gonna fly with kite now. The wind picking up.
I'm coming. Karim, what you doing?
Fly my kite.
Yeah, but not here. You can't fly kite near power lines, boy.
Why not? The wind good.
Because mommy say, kite threads conduct electricity.
Yeah, kite. He's right. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, you can cause power outages, or even worse, it can get shocked.
Come, let's go and fly them in the pasture.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kite threads conduct electricity. Do not fly kites near overhead power lines. This can lead to electric shocks and power outages. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, do not try to retrieve it. Release it and call GRENADA. Always fly kites in open areas. Keep your kites far away from roads. And remember, always clean up after yourself.
GRENADA, energizing our Grenada.
By the way, for those of you who were unable to join us at some point yesterday, in addition to doing this program yesterday morning, Gudday Grenada, we also did a couple other programs later in the day at 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. And by the way, they got started at exactly 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. We had the youngsters in here with their weekly program. It was the fourth program they'd done, titled Woke. And let me tell you, if you didn't see that yesterday, I humbly suggest that you go on back to the website, actually right where you are right now, and take a look. In the archive section, check out Woke. I think it's the last of the 6 columns in there. These kids, boy, they poured their hearts out. And they were talking quite a bit about agriculture and a number of other issues. And listen to these youngsters, and you'll see that they were making a heck of a lot of sense. Okay, so you can check that out. And of course, for those of you who missed us last night, yep, as always, every Thursday evening, the usual suspects, we got together here for this week's edition of We Chat, which was also another scorcher. I think there were 6 of us on there last night. We had Jerry in St. Vincent, Margaret was here in Grenada, Atherton Martin was in Dominica, Margaret Francis was in New York, and Catherine Edwards was in England, and of course yours truly right here. Go on back to the archive section under We Chat. Check it out. Now, let's see here. Hazel Ferguson saying, good morning, everyone. Good morning to you too, Hazel. Kipling Francis saying good morning and God's blessings. Pilgrims, here comes your national report.
Grenada encouraged to forge ahead as best practice for anti-corruption efforts. We'll have the details to this story and more in the national report. With the details to the news for Thursday, April 4th, I'm Delroy Luzon. The government of Grenada is being encouraged to forge ahead with anti-corruption efforts, especially since the country's Integrity Commission is being hailed as a best practice. Meeting with Prime Minister Dr. The Right Honourable Keith Mitchell on Wednesday, Dr. Raja Kuranteng of the Commonwealth Secretariat commended the anti-corruption initiatives taken by the government. Mr. Kuranteng noted that the Prime Minister has been a long-time advocate of anti-corruption initiatives. He recalled that even during his time in opposition, Dr. Mitchell voiced support for the establishment of the Office of the Integrity Commission, and since being re-elected, has continued to do so. Dr. Kuranteng, who recently won an International Anti-Corruption Award, said it is unfortunate that Grenada's anti-corruption efforts are not yet reflected in the Corruption Perception Index. Noting that data sets lag a couple of years behind, he expressed optimism that the work being done would soon be reflected on the index. The Prime Minister expressed full agreement with this view. He noted too that the research should go beyond the conclusion drawn from the data to give more credibility to the collection process. Dr. Mitchell said, and I quote, "We have passed many laws, created several initiatives, and invested significant resources in anti-corruption, but we cannot seem to get the credit for what has been done and continues to be done. It is unfair and unfortunate, but we will not be discouraged. What we are doing is not merely for a score or a rating, it is for future of this country," unquote. Just last week, the Office of the Integrity Commission hosted a senior leadership and management training program focusing on anti-corruption, where Dr. Kuranteng was the main presenter. He said the overall objective of any country in keeping corruption at bay is ensuring there is good governance. For this, he said all must be on board.
Good governance is all-embracing. If a policeman does his work well, if immigration does their work well, if the public administration does their work well, what are you doing for your country? You are promoting good governance in your country. So that is the overall objective. And that's why we need to work together, because we don't have a limited myopic objective of just catching criminals. And so what? If you catch criminals, what have you done? You are promoting good governance. If you get people to pay their taxes, promoting good governance. If you can provide justice, you are promoting good governance. The Prime Minister cannot do all this work. That's why he appointed, the state has appointed all of us to do pieces of this universal set called good governance. So we should have that in mind, and that's why we have to collaborate. Civil society have a better role to play in promoting good governance.
Waiting on government to hand out everything instead of taking a business approach and guarding your investment can guarantee you will not succeed. That warning from Mr. Elvis Moraine, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, who was addressing participants at the first Northern Agricultural District Youth Symposium in St. Patrick on Thursday. Mr. Moraine says once people are serious about agriculture, they must do away with the mindset that government must provide them with everything.
I believe in hand-holding. I believe in giving you certain things to a certain level, but I believe there is a time that you have to stand on your own. And that's my fund. That's not ministry. That's my fundamental belief. It's like a child. You care for your child. You hold the hand. You grow. After a while, the child is on his own. And every farmer must begin to look, and not just farmer, every investor must begin to look at it that way. Because if every year we're going to come and we're going to say, listen, this, that, and government, it means that what are we going to show? And nobody is assuming responsibility for what you're doing. Because it's like, when you grow up, as you say, you're a spoiled child, and mommy will always come and give you something. So you're being careless. You can do everything else, and well, watch, this is going to happen. You have to get out of that mindset. And when you come with an innovative idea, and you're doing something new, and you might need startup, yes. But government give a lot of concession. Forgo a lot of resources every year in concession to farmers. So you have to understand this. If you're going to approach as a farmer, and all you do is wait for government support, you would never succeed.
With their different skill sets, the Permanent Secretary is also urging farmers to come together to ensure their venture is a success. But once they must implement proper systems to make this success a reality.
The Agricom project we have actually support this, for you to work together in cluster. But let me warn you up front. When you do that, you have to be open. Everybody feel that you're in a cluster, that's nice. And once they produce, John making more money, but I ain't in this thing. You ain't gonna work that way. For government support, you have to have proper systems set up as to how you're gonna deal with your finances and so on. But sometimes you do need that support. Because you have half an acre, you request tractor service. Does it make sense? Or should you have 5 acres of land and young people come together and you work? Setting up well. Secure and manage all your finances well. You can secure your family and you can own whatever you want to own in life. It's critical for you to work together so that you can go forward.
The symposium is the brainchild of District Supervisor Mr. Maximus Lazarus, who has been at the Ministry of Agriculture for many years and sees the need for farmers to employ proper financial management.
You got to look at your life and you got to ask yourself, what am I doing with my life? How do I see myself by age 65? I always tell people, I'm from an agricultural background, and I know that when you sow, you reap later than you sow, but you also reap more than you sow. So look at the seeds you're sowing now. Because whatever seeds you sow, it's going to bear enough.
You're tuned into the National Report. Stay with us. We'll have more news after the break.
After 4 weeks of preliminary qualifiers, after 4 zonal meets, it all comes down to this one incredible day of exciting track and field action. Come on! It's the National Secondary School Games Grand Finals. The Eastern, Western, Northern, and Southern zones will face off. Randy James Athletic Stadium, Friday, April 5th from 10 a.m. Excitement, attention, drama. The athletes will throw further, jump higher, and run faster. And inspirational halftime performances from Dash, Vaughn, and Mr. Killer. Witness poetry in motion, the fluidity of form and class. National Secondary School Games, the championship. Come feel the rhythm of the games.
Welcome back. The top students from all zones, including the Sister Isles, will meet at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium on Friday for a day of friendly rivalry, where the best were selected following zonal meets across the island. During the weekly post-cabinet briefing, Minister for Education and Human Resource Development, the Honorable Emmeline Pear, says all normal classroom activities are suspended to facilitate the games.
On Friday at 9 a.m., we anticipate that we will be having a start at the stadium, and we will be having a start with the field events. As you know, the zonal meets, except with the case of Karakou, did not give an opportunity for the field events. And so the athletes who are interested are coming to the stadium to do both the preliminaries and finals in that regard. Transportation, as usual, will be provided to all athletes, coaches, physical education teachers without a cost on that day. The rest of the school population, students, etc., will pay for their transportation as is normal in an intercall meet. So the schools will coordinate transportation. The students pay in advance or on the day, and they will be transported. There will be sufficient accommodation for them to be transported to the National Stadium. Of course, we know traditionally most students go straight to the National Stadium for intercall. However, we do have some students who go to the school and are transported from the school and then back to their homes, and that arrangement is in place. Let me also make the point that on that day, all normal classroom activities are suspended to facilitate the games.
And finally in the news, St. Paul's is now the home to Grenada's newest centenarian. Tuesday, April 3rd marked 100 years since Iona Batiste was born. The desk of the elderly within the Ministry of Social Development, Housing and Community Empowerment paid a visit to Ms. Batiste. We'll have the details in this report.
Put your eyes on the cross for the throne in the skies. God is still on the throne.
The beautiful words of now 100-year-old Iona Ann Batiste. Miss Batiste was born on April 3, 1919. She grew up in the village of Latante in St. David, where she attended the St. David Anglican School in her early years. She spent most of her life as a domestic worker. Even at the age of 100, Miss Batiste is able to recount her many memorable experiences, including her favorite foods.
I love bananas and fruits.
You love fruits and bananas?
I love sweet banana. White potato, blogo, yam, breadfruit, plantain. I take a whole hour to eat it, you know.
Okay.
Without I don't tell you. She will say, Mommy, you think that still are giving you the food are going so far, I'm going in tongue, I come back. I chewing it, I'm taking my time. I bump, you know.
Right.
But I eating all.
She says she spent years walking to earn a livelihood since her feet was the only means of transport.
I used to walk from St. David, from Latin Junction to St. George's. And I tell you, when we reach there, we have to walk all the streets again. So there's a lot of walking for the day to come back up without bus.
Right.
You have to put this two things on the ground. Some stones
Okay.
to come up. Hard work, hard work.
Miss Batiste gave birth to 4 children, 3 girls and 1 boy, 3 of whom are alive today. They all shared in her celebration.
I want to wish you God's blessing.
Thank you, thank you.
And there is not a mother like such as you.
Amen.
I want to wish Mom all the best, and may she live to see many more. And with she always give us encouragement and always tell us what to do and what not to do. So I want to wish her all the best.
Amen. Thank you.
I too want to thank the Lord for having my mother to live 100 years. I may not live, I don't believe I will live that age, not of today so. But I pray that God will continue to bless us and let us able to stick together.
We will travel together. It is my Bible and I.
For the National Report, I am Abigail McIntyre.
That story ends the National Report for today, Thursday, 4th April 2019. Recapping the headline, Grenada encouraged to forge ahead as best practice for anti-corruption efforts. That's all from us here at the Government Information Service. On behalf of all who made this newscast possible, I'm Delroy Louzan. Thank you for joining us.
that's going to take care of your national report this morning. Now, a lot has been going on while you were watching that, and I just want to get my 2 cents in here, first of all. It seems like today is the day of fashion statements. What is George talking about? Well, first of all, you notice that we've gone from having a bun on the top of our heads to the locks down on our shoulders. Have you noticed that? Hey, that's one fashion statement. In just a minute, well, actually, I'm not going to keep you waiting. Take a look. Take a look. See that guy there? Take a look. He's all dressed in blue this morning. He has a blue polo shirt on. No big deal there. But he's properly coordinated. Take a look. Coming out of his ears, a blue headset. Matching headset and golf shirt. I mean, come on. Talk about fashion statement. Obviously, he can't wait to get down to the stadium. And 29 minutes from now, that's when the games are going to get started. So I guess he's all decked off and ready to go on down to the stadium. Now, let's get to the national report. First of all, Margaret, by the way, Margaret has proven this morning that she is fair. Margaret usually jumps on anybody whom she catches goofing up. Well, she caught me goofing up this morning. When I was talking about Mekwee Chat last night, I mentioned that Margaret was in, I must have said that Margaret is in Grenada, and she's pointed out here to me that Margaret, it's Bev who's in Grenada, not Margaret, okay? And she suggested that I was having a senior moment. Well, Mags, maybe a senior moment. It's a lot better than the periodic hot flashes which I have from time to time. T.F. Richard says, sinners always put things in place to catch other sinners besides themselves. The corrupted trying to catch the corruptors, but they ain't looking in the mirror. So says T.F. You know what he's talking about. Pele Darbo is saying good morning. Good morning to you, Pele. In just a few minutes, you're going to be seeing your friend here, Mr. Brian Pitt. Peter Bishop says, Satan correcting sin as it relates to the Integrity Commission. Agatha Jordan saying, good morning to you, George, including Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. Blessings to you all. Agatha, let me say something. Thank you very much, first of all. I have very often seen you popping up on Facebook. And something I can't help but notice, very often when you do pop up, you've got your family with you. And I just want to say that you have, I don't know you very well, I don't know your family, but from what I see and read on Facebook, you have a very closely knit family, and your kids obviously love you dearly. You're blessed. Thanks for being a part of this forum. T.F. Richard says, fish rottens from the head. I've listened to the prime destroyer minister talk about agriculture and watching his father work hard and gain nothing. So what do you expect? Kipling says, we the masses should call for a temporary ban on a few words. For one, transparency. Another one, accountability. And another one, integrity. How about a 4-year ban? Hope you're not holding your breath, Kipling. Let's see. Anthony DeRigg says, good morning, George and friends. We opened our eyes this morning. It is not by chance. The Creator wants us here. Let us breathe a prayer of thanks. I join you, Anthony. Peter Bishop, and he's talking about the centenarian in St. David's. He's saying, God bless you. St. David's produces good people. Best story in the NNP report. And Margaret here says, nice story. Saw it on GBN and GIS. Was definitely the better package. Hold on a sec here. What she's saying is she saw it on the GBN. And she also saw it on the GIS, which was definitely the better package. That's the one I got from the GIS last night mags. Thanks a lot. Okay, folks. Now that we've taken care of all of that, let's take a little break, and then we'll come on back and say good morning to Scunny, Blue Scunny.
Grenadian General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company, tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive, motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary, public liability, professional indemnity, directors liability, and wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 440-2434.
Tell everybody.
Conveniently located in the Grandand Shopping Center, for over 40 years, Food Fair has provided quality service at affordable prices. Now, grocery shopping is made easier and more convenient from the Food Fair web store.
Hey, babe. Listen, I need you to go down to Food Fair to get some groceries.
All right, no problem. Right away.
Thanks, babe. What are you doing? You're supposed to be going Food Fair to get a grocery, man.
I am, but didn't you know you can order your groceries online from the Food Fair web store?
Are you serious?
Of course. All you have to do is just to log on to www.foodfair.gd with credit card in hand, and with an order of $100 or more, Food Fair Grenadans will deliver up to 3 miles away. And you don't even have to worry about your information, you know. Their safety measures are excellent.
So hold on. You just order online and Food Fair will deliver to you?
Yep,
Oh, baby, better hurry up and order, man.
I already did. They should be here any minute now.
Enjoy easy online shopping anytime from your home or office from the Food Fair web store. Food Fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets.
Boy, they gonna fly with kite now. The wind picking up.
I'm coming. Karim, what you doing?
Fly my kite.
Yeah, but not here. You can't fly kite near power lines, boy.
Why not? The wind good.
Because mommy say kite threads conduct electricity.
Yeah, kite. He's right. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, it can cause power outages, or even worse, it can get shocked.
Come, let's go and fly them in the pasture.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kite threads conduct electricity. Do not fly kites near overhead power lines. This can lead to electric shocks and power outages. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, do not try to retrieve it. Release it and call GRENADA. Always fly kites in open areas. Keep your kites far away from roads. And remember, always clean up after yourself.
GRENADA, energizing our Grenada.
Alrighty, folks, let me make myself very comfortable here because it's going to be an interesting morning with Mr. Pitt. Good morning to you, Mr. Pitt. How are you, sir?
Good morning, George. I am doing very well, George. My head is in the condition it's in because my hair was giving some difficulty combing in the morning, and I wanted to get ready as quickly as possible for this show this morning, George. So I took it all off.
You chose.
I missed my afro, but I took it all off.
You chose to give preference to your hair rather than your coordinated wardrobe. Blue.
I was going to get to that, George. I have 4 adult children who insist that I am well coordinated for the day, and even though they don't live here, via WhatsApp they tell me what to wear in the morning, and I'm grateful to them.
Well, congratulations. So your kids are obviously very creative, and their hard work's paying off on you. Brian,
yes.
Listen, man, you going down to Queen's Park in a little while?
No, George.
That's
call it a one-man protest.
I find it hard to believe, but this man is at a loss for words this morning. He says, just
yes, George, because there's all kinds of stuff going through my head about this event that is taking place today, and I guess we're going to get to some of them in a minute. But I was just listening to a report by the minister on social media. And by the way, George, I want to get to a conversation at some point about how people get their news and information in Grenada. And the minister was talking about this SBA problem. And I believe it was a report from GBN or whoever, I'm not sure, I don't recall now, but she was suggesting a certain protocol in regards to the correction of SBAs. And I'm listening to her, and there was an opposite opinion from somebody out of Barbados on this SBA issue. And I couldn't help but think whether or not the minister got a legal opinion on what she was putting forward. I'll tell you why I say that, George. I think it was last week we talked about judgments against the government of Grenada and whether or not the government of Grenada can be paid. And I think I mentioned on this program many moons ago that, you know, a former member of this government suggested to me that government can make your life as uncomfortable as possible. And they know that if you take them to court, you will win, but they don't have to pay. If the minister did not get legal advice on this issue as to the correction of SBAs, and my research tells me that the SBAs are a requirement of CXC. I'm not a lawyer, but the teachers can help the kids prepare the SBAs, but they don't necessarily have a commitment to mark those SBAs. That is assigned via CXC. But let's just suppose this matter goes to court and the government loses. Pays, George. Again, it's the Treasury. And the minister is saying what she's saying because she can say it, not necessarily because it's right or legal. And that is what was going through my mind when I was listening to her this morning. And I'm saying, Lord of mercy, I hope the Attorney General gave some legal opinion on this matter, you know. Because her intent was to make the teachers look as bad as possible. And that is not good, George.
It's not, but it's been a trend for the last several months right now. But the ray of hope that I have is that somehow it appears that the general public is really not buying into it.
Well, I hope so. And it gets me to another interesting point before we get to the sports, George. I note a press release from the Conference of Churches. And I was perplexed.
You're lucky, Brian. You got a press release from the Conference of Churches. I have.
No, I didn't get a release. I think it was on social media again.
Well, they certainly did send it my way.
I picked up, well, maybe you're not in the good books, George. Are you a practicing good Catholic or good Christian, George?
No, sir. Well, I'm a good Christian, but I'm not practicing Catholic.
Well, that's the problem, George. You're supposed to go worship in a place.
Oh, I see.
If you're a good Christian, don't worship at home.
I see. Well, I hope nobody's holding their breath on that one. Okay.
But listen, no, there was this release. It was attributed to the Conference of Churches, talking about this whole issue about teachers. I don't believe they use the words of not having the interests of our children at heart, but it referred to teachers and the concern that they should have about the well-being and education of our children. And I recall sometime last year, George, the Roman Catholic bishop had some dealing with the two sides and invited them back to the table, if I'm not mistaken, George. And that was before the government decided to remove monies from the teachers' pay. Bishop got involved and said that, you guys got to get back on the table and have the conversation going. And then government removed some money from the teacher's salary. And if I'm not mistaken, again, George, I stand corrected, this quotation was attributed to the bishop. How can you invite people back to the table and remove the food? And repeat that, George. How can you invite the people back to the table and remove the food? Do you remember that?
Yes, sir. I do.
So who has removed the food? And if the food is the people's money, then you start from a position that government is wrong. That is my assessment, George.
Yeah.
And give it to Bishop Harris, I think his name. It was an attempt to say, listen, guys, this is not good. It's not right. You should not be doing this if we want to have a conversation that will be fruitful from both parties. And George, maybe we have short memories, we just forget what we write sometimes. And we don't understand how important social media is, and that everything we write and or record is there for prosperity. We can pull it up at any point in time. As a matter of fact, a good tech person tell me, Brian, you can't delete nothing on the internet. Yeah. So I think this whole idea of this sports today and the impasse between teachers is a frightening thing, George. Now, I tell you, I might be biased in terms of teachers because I have a long teaching tradition in my family. My granduncle was a teacher. He was a head teacher. I have cousins who were teachers. My sister is a teacher. One of my daughters is a teacher. So I know the importance of teachers to our children. And I was reflecting again recently, George. In Grenada, in the last few years, we've had a problem with abuse of children, incest, and sexual abuse of our children. And George, you know who is the first line of defense in trying to find this problem within homes? The teacher. So when that kid goes to school, if the teacher is alerted to look for signs that will say to her, listen, maybe there could be a problem there in this child's life. If the child is not performing well in school, maybe there are marks on the child's body. So we have to, when we have to deal with some of these social issues, we have to bear that in mind when we're trying to defame our teachers and put the children against the teachers. That is not good. Hey, George?
Brian, you mentioned a little while ago that it's sort of unfortunate that the kids are caught in the middle of this and they're the ones paying the penalty. But I think something that people need to not forget is that this all started because teachers were being deprived of their pensions. That's where this started. It didn't just come out of the blue. So let us never forget that. And by the way, Margaret here in New York says, Brian, the SBA is also an issue in Trinidad. The TTUTA argues that it is a CXC thing and they're not contracted to work with CXC. They have now taken the Trinidad and Tobago government to court for payment for marking the scripts. Jamaica, it seems, has worked out a deal with their teachers in which they're paid 300 Jamaican dollars per script. Brian?
So it's an issue that is being litigated right now, and the consensus seemed to be, George, that is a CXC responsibility. So to try and lay blame for this on the teachers' work to rule, I think is dishonest. And again, if it is a dishonest move to say that the teachers are bad people, then it's wrong. And Margaret is right. I mean, this thing will probably go through the court. I doubt very much it will get through the court system, because I suspect that at some point in time, CXC is going to come in and say, listen, guys, this is our responsibility. Yeah, the teachers will help the kids prepare the SBAs, but the marking of the final product is going to be a responsibility of CXC, and we're going to find a way to do this.
T.F. Richards is saying, George, CXC is saying that this part is a government thing. So you know where this is heading.
To the court.
To the court. What court, Brian?
Well, I mean, George, maybe finally the Privy Council.
Maybe finally what?
The Privy Council. we might get a fair judgment out of it. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, yeah, but Brian, how long we're going to have to wait?
No, but hopefully it will not get there, George. I suspect that with reasonable negotiations, we can find an end to this problem, an end to this impasse.
TF also says, Brian, do you expect to get anything honest from a dishonest government?
George, therein lies my problem with this sports. Today, I heard Beverly talking about soccer sports.
Yes.
It's interesting, George, but athletes, good athletes, prefer not to have distraction. You get the maximum in your performance, the least distraction that you have.
Absolutely.
Because you prepared yourself for this moment, and for this moment, you want to perform at your best. You don't want to have to, you hope that you didn't overtrain, and you're focused on what you're going to do. So the less distraction you have, the better.
Yeah.
But George, when I heard of this halftime event, and by the way, I am not going to blame these artists, these guys who are going to perform, because the window for making money for these guys are very short. It could be small. It could be 1 year. Something completely different can happen next year. So that if government is prepared to pay you to perform, take the money.
Yep.
Take the money and run. Yeah. I believe that listen to the minister, she's suggesting that Mr. Killer would not sing the song, pick up something and run with it, or take a shot and pick up something and run with it. But you know something, George? That tune is so popular that even if Mr. Killer ain't sing it, the children might sing it.
Yeah.
To their own rhythm and beat. They might sing it because it's a popular thing, and it's a thing that they probably want to pick up the hurdles and run around the track. Brings me to the point, George. I consider this an abuse of our children. I'll tell you why. The minister and those responsible for putting on this halftime event are very well aware that our young people like to wine and jam. That is it. And if it takes an event to wine and jam to get you to the park, we're going to do that to make the teachers and the principals look bad. That is abusing our children, George.
I think the same point was made by Ray Roberts this week. He's suggesting that that's precisely what is happening. And I don't know whether he recalled it or not, but this week we also played a piece where the Prime Minister, in the run-up to the elections last year, was averse to the idea of calypsos and soca in Lent. And yet here we are. It now seems perfectly fine to do.
Well, maybe the Lenten season has changed to August, George.
Yeah.
Maybe after our carnival in August, there'll be Lent. We have the power to do a lot of things. That might be one of them.
Yeah.
But George, it reminds me of the 60s and 70s, and I will tell you why I'm going there. In Canada recently, the local government in Ontario voted to increase the class sizes, which means that the students would get less attention. You know what happened yesterday, George? The students in Ontario, they formed 12 students or whatever it was, organized a protest online because it was not in their best interest. The students. I remember in the 60s and 70s, though, George, a lot of secondary schools in Grenada had leadership in those schools. And if this were to have happened back then, the schools would have organized a protest. The students would have organized a protest. And I hope that a lot of secondary schools are not lacking student leadership, because this attempt is not in the best interest of the student. Am I right, George?
Yes, absolutely. And Brian, don't be surprised if you see our youth beginning to respond. I don't know whether or not you're aware of a program that we started here a month ago called Woke. We had the most recent edition yesterday afternoon. And I get the point, I get the idea that these youngsters are totally frustrated to the point where they now deem it necessary to get off their butts and take action. So, you're talking about an online protest. That's just the start. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if you see that type of thing spread to this area.
I wasn't talking, George, about an online protest, but organizing a protest online. Because something, in the last few weeks, George, I've noticed, and I asked the question earlier, where do people get their news and information? There were certain newspapers that by Friday afternoon in Grenada, you couldn't find a copy. You go to the usual places, and you couldn't find a copy of this particular newspaper. And if you go to the market on Saturday morning, if you get there before 8 o'clock, you might get a copy. Most of those newspapers now seem to be staying on the shelves.
Yeah, and it's not just here.
No. So are people getting the information and the news through social media? I don't know how many people look at this program, George, or listen to this program. But the amount of hits that certain items get on social media, I'm sure you're not enjoying that kind of success.
Yeah.
So we have to find a way to use the social media. And in the case of Ontario and the students there, the protest was organized online. And before you knew it, 600 secondary schools had a problem yesterday.
Yeah.
George, we are all passing through this thing. Some people born every day and people die every day. What the conversation we are having now, the beneficiaries of this conversation will be the young people of this country, will be the students. At one point last week or the week before, George, you lamented that we're talking about all these issues and nobody's listening. But George, nobody's listening because we're not important.
Yeah, well, maybe.
They don't consider us relevant. However, if the people of tomorrow, the young people of this country, decided to take action, organize protests, not violent protests, organize protests, let your parliamentarians know how you feel, I bet your attitudes change.
I'm sure they will.
Because the conversation is all about getting re-elected, George.
Yeah. The one thing I want to caution against, Brian, you have to be very selective. You're correct when you say that the move is on towards social media, but I think you need to be very, very cautious because there's a lot of misinformation being spread out there on social media. People have freedom to use it, they have the right to use it, and a lot of them are using it for the wrong purpose. Now, there's a note here from Margaret. She says, Brian, you're talking about students with a level of social and political consciousness. In your day, student councils were very active. I remember being in AHS, Anglican High School, and we organized protests as well.
Yeah. But George, you see those councils and the society, the geographical society, the historical society, etc., were organized by teachers. The students didn't organize that. So maybe the teachers need to take note of what they're doing and organize some extracurricular activities that will include historical societies, geographical societies, and those kinds of groups that can provide pressure, that can provide opposition, that can provide for their future. So the teachers have a responsibility.
Absolutely. Very interesting days ahead, BP. Very interesting days ahead. And I thank you for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. And I hope that the teachers are listening. The thing is, so many people are scared to take action in this day and age because of the victimization, ostracization, persecution that they're subject to, But I do believe that there are people, individuals who will emerge and get something going.
The teachers have a responsibility, George, and I think when all this is finished, that they will take on the responsibility very seriously and organize these extracurricular activities that will teach our young people how to lead and not always follow. Because the guys who are going down in Queen's Park today for the halftime show, they're following. And I just hope they don't take a sip and pick up something and run with it.
Nice way to end it. Nice way to run, Brian. Nice way to run. Thank you very much, sir.
Have a good day, George.
You too. Have a great weekend, and we're going to be in touch with you. Pilgrims, take a break.
you.
Come back.
Start the stride to a healthy lifestyle at the 2019 annual Pump It Up Family Fun Walk. There'll be more fun, more smiles, and more prizes for families and friends. Join us in Carriacou on April 7th at 4 p.m. as we walk from the Harveyvale playing field to the Hillsborough tennis courts, and in Grenada on April 28th at 4 p.m. from the Montrouge playing field to the National Cricket Stadium. Packages cost $20 per person for up to 2 individuals and $15 per person for groups of 3 or more. Come out in your numbers to help us raise funds towards re-establishing the Carlton Home.
Welcome home.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try their sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Alrighty, folks, just about time. It's 2 minutes after 10 o'clock. Let's wrap it up with an inspirational, not just today, but for the week. Mark chapter 11, verse 24. Just one verse. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Mark 11, verse 24. My dear friends, on that note, Georgie Porgy is going to hightail it out of here. It's been a really good week, hasn't it? And I thank you for making it that much fun, that much informative. I do hope you have a great weekend, and please remember to join us on Sunday morning, 9 o'clock, for the next edition of Sundays with George Grant, when we're going to have in here Mr. Rowan Phillip, who is the attorney for both Gemma Bain Thomas and Mr. Willen Thompson, both individuals who have come out victorious against the government of Grenada. God bless you, my dear friends, and we'll see you next week.